Hi, hello everyone. Welcome back to Empower Tutorials. I am Dr. Sonam, your biology teacher. So, how's everyone doing? Last class we studied about the chromosomes of the body. So today we'll be talking about the cell cycle of the body, the way how cells divide, multiply, grow in the body, right? So just give me a minute. I'll share screen. Yes. So here we are. We've studied about chromosomes, chromatids, what is chromatin, all such terms in our last class. And I also gave you all an activity in the last class, right? So we'll first discuss that activity and then we'll be going further before we begin with the cell cycle. Yes, and before that, let's come back to the positive quote that we begin with. So today's quote says, life is a circle. The end of one journey is the beginning of the next. Right? So as this picture shows, the phases of the moon, right? The moon has its own phases, right? From when we see the moon, the growth of the phases of the moon. So similarly, the quote talks about the phases of life, the journey of life. We may start one journey, that journey might come to an end. We need not be sad about it, as it is going to be the beginning of the next phase of our life, next journey of our life. So it just suggests that we must keep going, keep growing, keep learning new things. And one journey stopping doesn't mean that it's the end. It is nothing but the beginning of the next phase of our life, right? So something similar to this quote, what we are going to see today is the cell cycle, the cells of our body. Okay, before we go to that, the activity that was given to you all in the last class, it was about finding the DNA sequence where one strand the sequence was given to you all, and I asked you all to find the sequence of the other complementary strand. Right now, we've studied about the DNA sequencing where we saw about the purines and pyrimidines, where we saw that adenine pairs with thymine and guanine pairs with cytosine, the nitrogenous bases of the DNA strand. Right? अब यहाँ पे जो sequence दिया है, so the sequence says CGG, right? Let's go alphabet wise. C pairs with G, always as we know. So जहाँ C है, उसकी जगह complementary strand में G होगा. जहाँ G है, vice versa, उसकी जगह पे complementary strand में C होगा. Similar thing goes with A and T. जहाँ A है, complementary strand में T आएगा, and जहाँ T है, वहाँ complementary strand में A आएगा. So this is how you decide the DNA sequence of the complementary strands of the DNA. Okay, is everyone with me? Is it clear? जहाँ भी A है, that will get replaced with T, C will get replaced with G. Do not get confused between purines and pyrimidines and the base pairing, right? We saw them as pair of best friends, A and T and G and C. And we also learned the mnemonic C3G, that is cytosine and guanine are formed by triple bonds and A and T are with double bonds. Okay, is it clear how we have to find the DNA sequencing of the DNA strand? Okay, let's go to the next topic that we are going to see today. So now cells are constantly forming in our body, right? New cells keep forming, they form, they divide, they redivide, and that is how cells are growing. What we saw in the last class was we have about 40 to 50 trillion cells in the body. So now how are these cells forming? One cell gives rise to two more cells. Those two daughter cells will give more rise to four more daughter cells. So that is how these cells will keep dividing and redividing. But the question is, why are these new cells forming? Okay, what is the motto of these cells of forming in our body? How does it help our body? And what vital role does it play? Okay, so why are new cells formed? What I've written in the bracket R3G is a way you're supposed to memorize the reason why the cells are formed. So first one talks about repair, then we have replacement, then we have reproduction, and then we have growth. Okay, the main motto of everything ideally is growth. Now I have put it in this order for you to just make it easy for you to memorize. Okay, R3G, repair, replacement, reproduction, and growth. Growth, as we say, as the word says, we are growing, the parts of our body are growing, so we need cells to grow, right? Next thing is repair. Now whenever we have an injury, a cut, or anything on the skin of our body, the cells are repairing. That is why the injury gets repaired and we have a new layer of skin on our body, right? So that is because the cells are getting repaired. Similarly, we have replacement. Replacement of cells takes place. Then we have reproduction. Reproduction of cell is taking place in a way that cells are dividing. Okay, so that is basically the motto of the new cells being formed. Just have a look at this video. It will give you an idea how the cells are dividing. See, here you see 4 cells. Now we have the 5th one. Now it is giving rise to the 6th one. So these cells will keep multiplying. They'll keep multiplying. The cells will keep growing in number constantly. Okay. So memorize the formation of these cells, the reason for the formation of these cells, repair, replacement, reproduction, and growth. Going to the next thing, that is phases of the life cycle of the cell. Okay, now it is a life cycle of the cell. How the cell cycle takes place? Let's have a look. It has certain phases, just like the phases of light, just like the phases of moon. The cells in our body are having some phases via which these cells go step by step, and then the parts are formed, the body grows. So the two main phases that we see in the cell cycle are the interphase and the M phase. Okay, just memorize these names. We will be going into detail of every phase. So today, just remember interphase and M phase. Okay, M phase stands for the mitotic phase. So today, first we'll be studying about what is interphase. So now, again, this diagram, this pie chart diagram is showing you the different phases in the interphase. Okay, here as you see, this M again stands for the mitotic phase. And these 3 phases that you see in green, yellow, and peach color, that is G1, S, and G2. These 3 phases are together forming the interphase. Okay, G1 phase stands for growth. S phase is a phase which is meant for DNA synthesis. And we have the G2 phase, which is also known as the pre-mitotic phase, because this phase is taking place just before the mitotic phase. Okay, so this is how the cycle runs. Do not go in the reverse order. It starts with G1, then S, then G2, and then comes the mitotic phase. So we'll be studying about these phases in detail today. We are only dealing with interphase for the today's class. So let's go to G1 first. In a gist, we'll see what happens in all these 3 phases. So we have the G1 phase, the S phase, and the G2 phase. Okay, now what is happening in the G1 phase is there is cell growth taking place. It is the basic beginning of the cell cycle. So cells are growing in size, right? They are multiplying. So cells are growing in size. The nucleus is growing. There is RNA and proteins which are getting ready for the DNA synthesis. Because which phase is going to follow next? It is the synthesis phase. So G1 phase में जो RNA है, proteins है, they are warming up, getting ready for the synthesis of DNA that is going to take place in the next phase. So that this is all basic things that are happening in the G1 phase. Basically, G1 phase, you can say that it is just the preparatory phase of the exact cell cycle that is taking place. Now coming to the S phase. So S, as it stands for synthesis, it is known as the phase of synthesis. इसमें क्या synthesize हो रहा है? Histone synthesis हो रहा है. What we've seen in the last class, what are histones? It is an octamer firstly, it is a protein, and these histone proteins are helpful to us for the packaging work. They are helping us to package the chromatin and the DNA material. They are small beads and they wound the chromatin and the DNA material over themselves. Okay, so the histone synthesis is taking place here because they are going to help us for the DNA work. So there is histone synthesis. Next thing what happens is there is chromosome replication. Now when we have one chromosome and when the replication of chromosomes is going to take place, that one chromosome is going to give rise to 2 sister chromatids. Okay, what we've seen in the last class. So one chromosome is giving rise to 2 more chromosomes, 2 sister chromatids. Now you need to remember one thing in mind. The human body, the male and the female both have 23 pairs, right? We have 46 chromosomes. So we have 23 pairs of chromosomes. Now the next thing that is also taking place in the S phase is the unstranding of the DNA. DNA का हमने helical structure देखा था, right? अब उसका unstranding हो रहा है. जो helical structure था वो open up हो रहा है. Why it is opening up? Because that DNA duplication is going to take place. ठीक है, जब वो 2 strands होते हैं, जब वो unstrand होते हैं, so this one strand will again give rise to 2 more strands, and the other strand similarly gives rise to 2 more strands. So the unstranding takes place and then the DNA duplication takes place. Okay, now coming to the G2 phase. G2 phase, as we saw, is the pre-mitotic phase. Why pre-mitotic? Because it is a phase taking place just before the mitotic phase. Now in this, what happens is जो भी सेल ऑर्गेनल्स रहते हैं, in the G1 phase सिर्फ न्यूक्लियस ग्रो हो रहा है, right? In the G2 phase all the other cell organelles are also growing. Now it includes the nucleoplasm, it includes the mitochondria, it includes the ribosomes, the endoplasmic reticulum. जो भी सेल ऑर्गेनल्स होते हैं उनका साइज बढ़ रहा है, न्यूक्लियर वॉल्यूम बढ़ रहा है. What is nuclear volume? Nothing but the nucleoplasm which is present inside. उसका वॉल्यूम बढ़ रहा है. So when these organelles are increasing, when the entire volume of the cell is increasing, that means the entire size of the cell is increasing, right? So that is why we say it is the increase in the nuclear volume. Then multiplication of cell organelles, as we saw, cell organelles bhi बढ़ रहे हैं in number, in size. So that is how this is again a preparatory phase for mitosis that is going to follow next. So are we clear with G1, S and G2? These three phases are together forming the interphase. Okay, now there is something also called as the G0 phase. It is basically not a part of your syllabus currently, but the G0 phase when discovered by the scientists. Now when they discovered one phase, uske baad there was a lag period after which there was the next activity that was taking place in the cells. मतलब जरूरी नहीं है एक के बाद एक वो phase continue हो रहा है. एक बार growth हो गया तो उसके बाद there is some lag period or there is some time period which is just like a break in between, and then comes the next phase. So scientists named that period as the G0 phase. It is also called as the relax phase or the G0 phase. It is basically the gap period. Okay, so that is also one phase. Just for your information, keep it in mind. It may be probably helpful to you during your preparatory exams like NEET and all. So G0 is also a part of the interphase, but currently it is not in your syllabus. So we are not going into its details. Now we have seen about the interphase, which is G1, S and G2. Now we are coming to the M phase, that is the mitotic phase. Okay? Mitotic phase में there are two classifications again. Main mitotic phase है, उसमें वापस दो classification है. One is mitosis and one is cytokinesis. Okay? Mitosis के अंदर जो processes होंगे, that is together also known as karyokinesis. Okay? It is known as karyokinesis, and दूसरा पार्ट जो है दैट इज साइटोकाइनेसिस. अब कार्योकाइनेसिस में क्या होता है? सेल्स का डिवीजन होता है, सेल्स बढ़ते हैं, मल्टीप्लाई होते हैं, ग्रो होते हैं. एंड साइटोकाइनेसिस में क्या होता है? साइटोप्लाज्म बढ़ता है. ओके, सो साइटोकाइनेसिस इज वेयर वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द साइटोप्लाज्म, एंड माइटोसिस और कार्योकाइनेसिस इज वेयर वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द सेल्स. ओके, नाउ गोइंग नेक्स्ट टू द फेजेस ऑफ mitosis. Now we are not talking about cytokinesis here, we are talking about karyokinesis. Okay, mitosis mein again we have four phases. It starts with the prophase. Okay, it starts with the prophase, then we have the metaphase, then we have the anaphase, and then we have the telophase. Okay, these are the four phases. Remember, as we saw in the structure of chromosomes, telo means end. So remember, telophase is the end phase. Pro is always the starting part. So remember, the cycle of the mitosis starts with the prophase and ends with the telophase. Okay, so it goes this way: prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. Okay, these are the four phases of mitosis. So what we have seen today in a gist is about the cell cycle. We have the interphase and the M phase. इंटरफेज में हमने वापस देखा G1 फेज, S फेज एंड द G2 फेज, जहां पे पूरा प्रिपरेशन हो रहा है फॉर द माइटोसिस टू हैपन. देन ओवरव्यू हमने देखा M फेज का, जिसमें होता है कार्योकाइनेसिस एंड साइटोकाइनेसिस. एंड देन कार्योकाइनेसिस के हमने चार फेजेस देखे, दैट इज द प्रोफेज, एनाफेज, मेटाफेज एंड टीलोफेज. ओके, दीज आर द फोर फेजेस ऑफ माइटोसिस. And what is cytokinesis? Cytokinesis is nothing but the multiplication of the cytoplasm or the volume of the cytoplasm. So we have seen in a gist of the cell cycle today. So do like the videos, do subscribe the channel, and it was a very short presentation that we have seen today. We have seen only a gist of the cell cycle today. Next class we'll be studying in detail about mitosis. What is mitosis? जो हमने आज चारों phases देखे, that is the prophase, मेटाफेज, एनाफेज एंड टीलोफेज. ये चार फेजेस हम देखेंगे माइटोसिस के, along with its diagrams. क्रोमोसोम्स का रेप्लिकेशन कैसा होता है, सिस्टर क्रोमैटिड्स कैसे फॉर्म होते हैं, डीएनए डुप्लीकेशन कैसा होता है. एवरी फेज वी विल बी डिस्कसिंग इन डिटेल in our next class. So stay tuned. go through this lecture. Any doubts, please put it in the comment section. And if you don't understand today's lecture, it will be slightly difficult for you to understand what mitosis is in detail, which we'll be discussing in the next class. So do go through today's lecture, and I will see you all soon for the lecture of mitosis that will be coming up next. So stay tuned. I'll see you all. Bye-bye.